Scroller is hard.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
Sorry, one sec, let me look at the participants. Yeah, okay, yep.
Can you folks hear us?
Yeah, I can see the microphone going up and down. So
Great.
It's okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
E aloha no ka aino luvehi. E aloha no ka aina uluvehi. Vehi ke aloha o na kupunai. He puna mai I ke kau I ka hano. Hano hano wale o Hawaii. E ho mai ka maopopo pono, pono mai uka I ka ie. Aloha e, aloha e, aloha e.
All right, everyone. That is 3 p.m. Let's get started. It is my pleasure to introduce Aimee Sato for today's NREM research seminar. Aimee Sato is a hula dancer that grew up in Wailua, Kauai, and now calls Kahalu'u, Oahu, her home. She studied cultural resource management in NREM for her undergraduate degree right here at UH Manoa. She also graduated with an MS in botany at UH Manoa, with a focus in biocultural conservation. Aimee has had a long professional and personal relationship with Lonoa Honua, an organization that delivers cultural training opportunities such as the Halau Ohia Hawaiian Stewardships Program. Today, she brings together her background in conservation, cultural resources management, science, and Hawaii Lifeways as the Indigenous Stewardship Coordinator for the He'eia National Estuarine Research Reserve, based at the Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology. Aimee, thank you so much for being here with us today. I now invite Haley to present with you today.
Oh, thank you. Oh, I don't get plumerias very often. Thank you, guys. Mahalo. Okay. So Zoom folks, just let me know if I'm not projecting enough, or people in the audience as well. Aloha mai kako. Thank you for the introduction. I'll share a little bit more about myself, but aloha again, o wau o Aimee Sato, no Kauai mai au, like Ernest said, kinahone ma kahalu'u, o ko'olau ku'umauna, o palikea ka wai, o malulani, a me ka waho ka mano ke kai, ola. So my name is Aimee again. I'm lucky to say that I can call Hawaii my birthlands. I also acknowledge and honor my ancestry. So I want to be really clear, I am not Native Hawaiian. I grew up in Hawaii. I was blessed to be hanai'd and taken in by a lot of beautiful mentors, kumu, and this place has raised me. My ancestry comes from Japan, and I have samurai warrior blood, which I think helps me in this kind of field, you know, brings me a little bit of a fight spirit. I also have ancestry from Niigata, Japan, where they were rice farmers. So similar to Lo'i here, I think that's why I love getting my toes muddy and my toes stained green from the Lo'i. So yeah, I'm happy to be here today and just honored to be able to speak to you all. I love any opportunity to come back to NREM. I used to be here for undergraduate, Melissa Price was my mentor, so awesome to come full circle. And I'll present a little bit more about my journey in just a little bit, but today I'll be presenting on this long title, Hawaiian Cultural Values and Protocols for Common Terrestrial Conservation Actions. It's a mouthful. Kavika Winter, the director of the reserve that I work with, helped us come up with the Olelo Hawaii title. No ka loina Hawaii o ka oihana malama aina. And today I come to you guys as someone called the Indigenous Stewardship Coordinator. I'm with the School of Ocean and Earth Science Technology, SOES, which Hawaii Institute of Marine Biology is nestled within, which is also nestled within this larger federal framework called He'eia National Estuarine Reserve, which Ernest said beautifully. It's a long acronym. I'm just going to say NER, or He'eia Reserve for short. But yeah, thank you for being here. Because it is 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm going to kind of wake us up here, myself included. Some of you folks might be familiar with this beautiful oli that was written by one of my beloved Kumu and Tikikuhi Kili'i Kanaka Ole, and my dear friend Leila Dudley. And it's titled Eolukini. Sorry, it's cut off a little bit on the top. But short and sweet, this is a planting chant. And whenever you look at a chant, you want to take a quick skim. Just like when you take a really quick skim of an abstract and you just look for keywords, right? So you look at some of the repeating, repetitious words. What do you guys see a lot? Ulu. Okay, does anybody know what that means? Breadfruit, that's one. Anything else? Grow. Ulu, to grow. So it makes sense, right, if it's a planting chant. This is a chant that we've shared in many spaces, Hawaii Conservation Conference, more than once. We've shared just to give it as a tool for our community. It comes from inspired by a larger chant. It's a kuahu chant. So in the hula practice that I come from, when we build an altar, we chant this longer form of this chanting growth for everything that helps to feed us, helps to feed our hula intellectual spaces. And this is a more accessible chant that was created for our community to take on, to be able to share, to be able to have keiki and children chant this. So I share this with you folks today. And if you do want to share this in another space, just contact me. We want to make sure that we honor the people that created it and the intentions for this chant. Okay, so we're just going to jump right in. This is a really easy chant to come straight into. I'm going to ask you guys to jump in on the bolded, darker lines. And really quick, e ulue, like we said, growth. When you put an A in front of it, it becomes a command. So we're commanding growth. If you guys have seen Totoro before, there's this one part where they have the umbrellas and they're asking for the sprouts to pop up, and it sprouts and then it becomes a big forest. That's the kind of vibe we're going for. So put your Totoro hats on and get your little plant or umbrella.
Would you like us to stand up?
Sure, yeah. We're just going to jump right in. So when I say e ulue, you guys are going to respond e ulue. So a little bit intonation difference, right? Response. Okay, let's try that. E ulue, e ulue. Okay, next one. E ulukini. Kini means many, multitudes. Okay, so grow plenty. E ulukini, oh blank. So we're going to insert a place name. Which you guys think? Manoa? Manoa is appropriate. Or we can say Hawaii too. So e ulukini o manoa. Okay, kind of get it with the beat. It's fun when it's like a bunch of syllables and you just got to get it in the beat. But manoa is easy. Okay, let's try that. E ulukini o manoa. Okay. O kane is next. And me kanaloa is going to be you guys. Anybody know who kane and kanaloa is?
Two brothers.
Two brothers. What are they associated with a lot? Vai, water for our Zoom folks. So Kane is a little bit more on the freshwater side, to be very, very simply put. Kanaloa is more of the ocean or the deep subconscious, right? So we're bringing in for growth. I think we all know we need water, right? And we need all the types of water, Kane and Kanaloa. The deep waters, the surface waters, the water in our atmosphere, right? So let's try that. O Kane me Kanaloa. Ulua e. A is a directional up. That makes sense, right? Ulua e. Ke ia blank. Okay, this is the fun part where you guys take a moment to think just today. It doesn't have to be your favorite thing or your one thing you're going to do your thesis on, but think of a plant or animal that you want to give some good growing life vibes to, right? Let me think. For me today, I'm going to say new coconut, and it doesn't even have to be in Hawaiian. So what's the recent one we just did? Conspicuous cucumber. You know, one of the keiki said that. So kei, a conspicuous cucumber. So as long as you can fit it in that rhythm, get it in there. So there'll just be a big symphony of names. Okay, let's try that. Ulua e kei
Rhinoceros.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, and then this is some familiar words we've heard before, right? Eulukini, eulue. Eulue, and this is the best part, who. So you say,
Who?
ha.
Ha.
Who is kind of what it sounds like. So, like when a wave is about to crash over and there's that momentum, it's like, who, right? And it's also that, I think of it as almost like a breathing into, like, who. And then ha is a breath. Ha. Okay, so we're going to end with that vibe of cycles, right? Breathing in and out. We got water, we got growing, many, upwards, right? Good energies. Okay, let's do it one more time all together. Okay, deep breath in, hanui loko, and ho'oku'u release. Ready? Eulue, eulue, eulukini, o manoa. O Kane me Kanaloa. Ulua e keia liu. Eulukini, eulue. Eulue, big hoo. Oh, la mahalo. Thank you for participating, guys. Okay, I feel the juice is moving. Okay, so this is one thing I will bring up later on as I talk about my report, or the document that we're sharing about. So I'm going to speed through a quick journey because I know there's students in this room, some undergraduate, some graduate maybe. And yeah, I feel like NREM seminars are a great way to see where people might end up, especially if you're an undergraduate in NREM under the direction of Professor Price or any of our other advisors. Yeah, I just wanted to share a little bit about my journey. Like in my bio or introduction, I was raised as a hula practitioner in Hawaii. And I also had another passion for all things Aina. So being born and raised in Hawaii, I also had a father that did surf photography. So I just was in nature a lot. There was this deep respect for nature and reverence because it could hurt you if you're not paying attention. So that was kind of the framework that I was brought up under, right? And as I went through my teenage life, I didn't really know what I was doing. Even today, I feel like a lot of, as we get older, you think you would start to know what you're doing, but every day is a challenge, right? So when I got to the academic space, I was wondering, what do I want to do? Somehow with the mentorship of Dr. Wendy Kuntz at Kapiolani Community College, he guided me towards this path of NREM. And luckily, I got together with my advisor, Dr. Mehana Ban, right here on the top left corner, and with mentorship of Dr. Melissa Price. And I'm gonna encourage all the students here to just ask questions, attend these kind of seminars, be curious, because everything that I started with in NREM started with a question. It just so happened me and Mehana were, at a presentation where you were talking about DNA barcoding of snails, I think, which was like flying over my head. But me and Mehana were in the corner. I didn't know anything about snails, but we whispered to one another and said, "Did you also dance that hula growing up? Kahuli aku, kahuli mai?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then it just started with the question of, I wonder if there's more. Is there more stories, chants, songs about the kahuli? Is there something we can learn from or uncover or bring together, right, to help the conservation of these cute little land snails? And then that spiraled into research that was not required in my undergraduate, but it was so fun. I got to collaborate with folks like Snail Extinction Prevention Program. And this is really my first step in figuring out how I can combine my two worlds of hula and Hawaii lifeways with my love for conservation and aina and resource management. Ended up being beautiful. Somehow I published my first paper. And this is going to be a long-running theme that I keep referring back to, but long-term relationship. Just the other week, I presented and helped out with the Kahuli Festival, so I still very much am honored to be a part of this weird little snail group of conservationists. We're very, very small, but love the snails, and I will forever be a snail nerd. And then there's a little bit of gap that I'll talk about, but since we're in academia, I also want to give shout outs to botany over there at UH Manoa. My advisor there was Dr. Tamara Tickton, which some of you folks might be familiar with. She focuses largely on socio-ecological restoration and knowledge and conservation. Also, dry forests and agroforests is kind of up there within our lab, in the Tickton lab. For my specific research, I wanted to do something a little bit different and branch out into biocultural restoration of Hawaiian dry forests. So I worked with a lot of community organizations that do biocultural restoration. That was one of my questions, is what does biocultural even mean to people, right? We kind of throw that word around a lot. And I made sure when I interviewed some of the restoration managers that I asked them, what does biocultural mean to you? What do you think makes your project biocultural? And we went into trying to understand what, not just ecological, we did some ecological studies of measures of success of dry forests, especially with a biocultural approach, but also some of the social, cultural, and spiritual measures of success of biocultural restoration, right? What do volunteers get out of a volunteer day when it started with a chat? Or what do the lineal descendants, what is their relationship to this restoration project when it's very place-based, when they are even, the lineal descendants are the managers of this place? How does that affect their relationship with the conservation and restoration, right? So that was my botany project. And then, and I'll also note, again, long-term relationships. I have a very good relationship still with a lot of the restoration projects that I worked with. I still go whenever I can to do annual forest surveys. This is gonna be something I keep reiterating when we're talking about involving the community and trying to make things place-based, cultural. And then the biggest, probably pivotal growing moment for me was kind of this gap in between my undergraduate and master's research, I didn't really know what to do when I graduated, and I followed my gut, and a lot of people thought I was crazy for this. But once I graduated, I moved to Hilo, and I knew one person that picked me up from the airport. I had just a part-time internship with Kamehameha Schools with the Malama Aina Natural Resource Department. I barely had anywhere to live, but something in my na'au and my gut, my ancestral guidance was telling me I had to go to Hilo. So again, trust your gut sometimes. And I made it to Hilo. I didn't really know what for at that time, but I just knew that I had to be in that space. And funny enough, 1 month later, this whole thing called Halal Hi'a was birthed. And a little invitation came around to my email saying, would you like to join this thing called Halal Hi'a? Nobody really knew what it was at this time. It was led by Auntie Kikui Kili Ikanakaole on the far right over there, which was like my hero growing up. I used to listen to her CDs and be like, that is what I aspired to chant like. And yeah, her family was, you bow down to them when you're in the hula world. And I was like, why wouldn't I take this opportunity? So I started with the flagship cohort in 2016. And then from then, I took leadership roles. I became the KUA administrative assistant for her company that delivered a lot of cultural trainings. So Halal Hi'a might be most familiar with folks, but we taught Hawaii life ways to especially conservationists. Things like the top corner photo on the right. Like, how do you train people, whether you're Hawaiian, not Hawaiian, grew up here, didn't grow up here? How do we make sure that you know how to enter a forest and you know how to act or how to act when they're in the forest, right? So we trained people from the ground up. It was transformational change that we wanted to do. We also did Oli kind of trainings, hula trainings. We also did a lot of consultation work. I give this context because you should know kind of my background. This is one example of consultation that we did. This was at U.S. Coral Reef Task Force meeting. They meet every 4 years, like the Olympics, and this particular year they were meeting in Kona in Hawaii, and they asked us specifically, how can we ground this event foundationally in place, in culture? How do we incorporate cultural protocols into just this gathering, this event? It's not even about a restoration action, right? So things like that. We got to work with lineal descendants of place. This was a beautiful, like I was mentioning earlier, an ahu or an altar that was made with everybody bringing coral from their spaces. Yeah, so that's kind of my background. And then just quickly where I ended up today. So up until this part of the story, I couldn't have told you that I planned any of that. It was just one door open, and I took it, and I talked story, and I never cut ties with anybody. It's all about pilina and relationship building, right? This is another weird spontaneous thing that I did, even though I deeply loved what I did with Lonoa Honua, Halal Hi'a, and I still believe in all the mission that Auntie Kikuhi set out to. I still jump in when I can. Something told me that I had to go be in place, go be in community. So we did like a ho'oku, a ceremonial release. I mahalo my team and Auntie Kikuhi for allowing me to do that. It was kind of a big shift. And then I went to go farm. So in the top right corner, I ended up doing AmeriCorps service up in Papahana, Kua'ola, Waipau, and He'eia, which is at the very, very top of the ahupua'a that I work in today. It was just a summer AmeriCorps service. And I just knew that I had to be just in the mud again, in the water. just to ground myself in place and then be with community. That was just a part-time AmeriCorps service. And it's really curious because that was at the Po'ovai, or the source waters of the place that I steward today for work. And this also fed in this moment of kind of a little break. I also helped with some restoration grassroots efforts to restore the Kahalu'u Lo'i. It's some ancient terraces back in Kahalu'u where I live today. It's one ahupua'a over the ridge from He'eia. So super interesting, very, very place-based. And we were able to really kickstart restoration there. And this also brings it back to some of the topics that this report talks about is lo'i restoration and stream restoration and forest restoration. How do we do that when this particular project, the landowner is SHPE, State Historic Preservation Department? What does that look like to have a grassroots organization and then work with this state agency to restore a place, right? And I got the opportunity because I was at Papahanaukua'ola, and Kamika Winter really pulled me in. This picture right there, I think he just did a seminar the other week to come into this He'eia Reserve that I briefly mentioned earlier. The reserve is grounded in indigenous lifeways and knowledge. A lot of the people pictured here are lineal descendants, our kupuna, our elders, our community partners. The people boots on the ground, they're really the ones that started the efforts to even become a reserve. So it started with the people of place. So of course, our main goal is to serve people in place, right? So my specific role is the stewardship coordinator. We also have research, education, and training in how to create thriving people and places, right? So that's what I'm doing today. And it comes back around with some familiar faces. Kamika Winter, what a surprise. One more person, Laura Ka'akua, who some of you folks probably have heard of. She, at the time that we did this in 2023, she was a deputy director for DLNR. And then Brisa Christofferson, a fellow NREM graduate. We put together this workshop. It really sparked from a phone call that Melissa made, and I was like super excited about this. And we got together this forum or workshop to look at what are the cultural protocols that can be done in some common terrestrial actions, right? So these are things, everything, I'll share a little bit more later on some of the topics, but things like invasive species. We had one table for invasive species. We had one table specifically on ungulate management. We had another table on lo'i stream restoration. We had another one for outplanting, another one for invasive species, I think, and native species, native insect species even, or birds. So we tried to think of every topic we could think of in terrestrial conservation actions and bring all the experts to the room. Hawaii Conservation Conference is like the best opportunity to get people to the table. So we brought everybody to the table and we had volunteer facilitators and note takers. It was largely, hopefully, some kind of product that we could create, some kind of data gathering of what have we learned, not just on what kind of cultural protocols you can use in this space, but what is beneficial or problematic about specific conservation actions, like we're saying, like ungulate management, right, or stream restoration. What are some problematic things that we might hit? Let's try to learn from our mistakes, right, or learn from the successes. There's one more thing. How about it? Oh, when to engage community and how. So those are the topics. We went in. We had note takers, and then the end result was that hopefully we can create some kind of report that we can hand to an organization like DLNR, because when we pulled this workshop together, to our knowledge, we weren't really familiar with some kind of document that someone could look at, right? If they're saying, oh, we're gonna do a stream restoration, and we, in this plot of land, and we want to engage the community, we want to do it right, but there wasn't kind of like this document that really summarized everything that we've learned. So that was the goal. And then I'll ask you guys, if you have your phones, you can actually get this document. Please scan this code. You get the access to a PDF version of this working draft or handbook. Download it. Feel free to read it later. Let me know if you lose it somehow, or if it's surprised when you have it. I will say that an NREM student that recently graduated, right, Kalea Paiva helped us transcribe the many volunteer notes from the workshop tables. She helped pull together this report, so we really want to mahalo her for that. I did a similar presentation, like the quick one that I'm doing today at HCC this past summer, the Hawaii Conservation Conference. We wanted to get feedback from folks. We had people look through it. Let us know if it's something you're excited about. If it's not helpful, we don't need to keep this as a living document, but that was the big question. Where does this live? Does it keep getting updated? If there's additional mana'o or thoughts from people, right? And caveat, this is not set in stone. If there's something that you really don't agree with, I welcome feedback. We did pull together all the data, and we try not to delete people's thoughts, right? Because if people felt strongly about something, we should share it. And then please also remember that we didn't audio record everything. It was a lot of this is volunteer note takers, so some of it you'll see in the report. If you see like green lettering, that means maybe we couldn't read it, or we're trying to interpret it, and then that's our interpretation of the data, right? If you see it in green. And then one more note I'll say is I really wanted this, we wanted this to be really accessible to anybody, whether or not you're from Hawaii, you know Hawaiian words, you're a scientist, a conservationist, a researcher, or just someone in the community. It needed to be accessible and easy to read, right? So you'll see there's like a lot of diagrams and pictures, and I use visual things. So we're gonna just dive right into it. So if you scroll to page 2, there's a quick intro section that breaks down mostly everything I just talked through. But I wanna highlight these 4 main sections. So section 1, core Hawaiian cultural values and conservation broadly. In section 2, we go into specific common terrestrial actions summarized. So those are like the table topics that I briefly mentioned, like invasive species. Section 3, there's a little bit of a quantitative analysis that Kalea helped us bring together on the themes and topics of conversation. Section 4, we talk about meaningful engagement of Native Hawaiians and local communities, and it's in a fun flow chart. And like I said, we want it to be really accessible, so we have a glossary and reference list at the end of the document. All Hawaiian words are defined when first mentioned. So let's dive into. So these are that section where we talk about core Hawaiian cultural values and conservation. So this was kind of just birthed as Kalea and I were looking at the data. These words like trust and transparency, knowledge, building relationships, this idea of hierarchy, the land is chief, and co-leadership, co-stewardship, and responsibility came up. And collectively, we thought about the best Hawaii terms that would best represent these English words, right? So let's look at just, I don't have time to go over all of it, but each one breaks it down a little bit more in the actual report. So let's just look at lokahi, so co-leadership, co-stewardship, and responsibility. So what does it even look like to value lokahi or co-stewardship. What does co-stewardship mean, right? Because sometimes it means differently to DLNR folks to what it means to the restoration technician at a project. So we're talking about things like long-term commitment. It's not temporary work, like I alluded to earlier, right? Can't just come in, do a one-year project and then dip out and never talk to them again. We need more community-led projects. For example, like DLNR or state or federal entities, be open to stepping back and assisting instead of leading. So example, if there's a community that's willing and able to take on an effort, just our project is one example in Kahalu'uloi. We had a grassroots organization, we have volunteers. We just need Shifty to say, that's good, and then check in with us, make sure that we're not doing more harm than good, right? Maybe a little support helps, either financially or helping with contracts or something like that, right? So let the community lead. Another really good example is little fire ants. I don't know if you guys have been following that invasive species journey, but we've really seen community leaders step up in this fight for LFA. The state just doesn't have enough resources, so this is when it's really beautiful if the community has capacity to step up. Some of my good friends, Kimiona Kane, Joe Watts from Key Project, Kapua Kavelo, they took on the reins for Oahu, especially Ko'olaupoko. They did everything from arranging community meetings. They went house to house and surveyed. They treated people's LFA situations. And one good example of kind of giving back and acknowledging that service that these people don't have to step up, right, in the community. 2024, HISAM, Hawaii Invasive Species Awareness Month, awarded these heroes really in the community, and they had governor's proclamation from Josh Green as well. So that was a beautiful way to honor the work, right? Okay, we're gonna move into section 2. If you scroll, and then when you start seeing some of the pictures, that's when we get into the table topics. So we don't have time to go through all of it, but I just wanted to highlight the general format that we go with this. And then again, if you guys have any more ideas on how more engaging we can make this and easy to read, that's always the best goal, to make sure that people can come in, learn it, and then dive deeper on their own, right? So what are the topics? This is actually one of the tables that I helped facilitate, wetland lo'i or terrace stream restoration. There's always a banner that we put just so you can visually know that this is a new topic. And then we picked some olalo no eaus that we felt spoke to this topic. So this one in particular is kalo kanu o ka'aina, taro planted on the land. Also another interpretation is the native of the land from generations back. Right? And then right under the banner, every topic summarizes some of the motivations, the conservation motivations related around this specific management action. So lo'i stream restoration, what are some of the motivations? I think for this one specifically, I don't have it in front of me, but we talked a lot about bridging old knowledge, indigenous, more traditional knowledge with current systems. We have to continuously evolve. One example with lo'i is maybe it's not feasible. It makes sense to just restore the older path of the auai. Maybe there's a house built right next to it now. Maybe we have to use PVC pipes, right, to move the water instead of an auai ditch. So topics like that. And then when you go scroll a little bit more, we split any action items that people shared into who should be responsible. So there's these kind of 3 themes here. Everyone should do all of these things, like gain a deeper understanding of some invasive species function that you come across in lo'i restoration. Agency level managers, so these are folks like DLNR, Fish and Wildlife Service, UH, what kind of things should they be aware of that falls into probably their neck of the woods, right? And then education and outreach folks. Hopefully, if you're an education outreach person for Oahu Invasive Species Committee and you want to look at this document, you can go straight to the education outreach sections and look at those topics, right? And then in the little clouds, these are just floating challenges and food for thoughts that definitely came out. Sometimes this was the most hot topic at the table. What are some of the challenges? And we strategically didn't want to focus on that too much, right? Because we can get stuck in the weeds of that. But we have to honor these challenges. And if it's being mentioned and people are speaking about it passionately, it's probably a challenge that you're going to hit if you're trying to do lo'i restoration, right? So there's some examples of that in the cloudy thoughts. And then one more here. Which time do we have? And then speed it up because we have 10 minutes for Q&A. Invasive ungulates. This was just a fun one. I love this olalo no eo. Ka'i'a leo nui o ka pali, loud-voiced fish of the cliffs. This is talking about goats, which were pursued by shouting hunters. Until I was trying to figure out olalo no eo, I'd never heard of this olalo before, and it was, yeah, makes sense. It's the fish of the cliffs. This table in particular was a really hot topic. We had some of the top dogs in ungulate management at this table, and they talked a lot about some of the challenges and things. I think ungulate, probably preaching to the choir, but ungulate management is hard when you're talking about how do you involve cultural protocol, because there's this big debate of is it an old practice? Is it a Hawaiian practice? What does that mean? How do you involve cultural protocol in this kind of thing, right? So yeah, I'm gonna speed along here. Okay, and then section 3, I believe this is just a quick quantitative analysis of how many times a theme was introduced. The only thing I'll say here, if you like numbers, this is cool. If you don't like less fluffy things, the biggest thing you can see here at the very, very top, the first row, communication and engagement, was 61. So that was very, compared to other categories, that was like 13, 18. We see that communication and engagement was really important to people. Even if we prompted them, they wanted to talk about it a lot. So we pulled this and then made section 4, which is the fun flow chart. As this table shows, we wanted to pull together some of the lessons learned from folks in an easy to understand and follow flow chart. It's not meant to be like a step 1, step 2, if you missed step 1, you failed. This is just like some of the large themes that come up, maybe some things you should consider. And then we put emojis because a lot of us use emojis and we kind of have a relationship with what these things mean. So really quick, identify. So this is when you use your eyes. You're just looking at who, what, where. Who do I even need to, like, who are the lineal descendants? I just had a meeting this morning about Iwi Kupuna and who are the lineal descendants that we should contact. So the first moment is just to use your eyes, identify, connect with people, right? Who are the people, who are the communities that we have to engage with? Then we use our ears to listen. We learn from different knowledge sources. Keep in mind here, there's no mouth. There's not too much talking yet, right? This is where the mouth comes in. So you have to do a lot of listening and observing. That's how you turn off a lot of community members when you come into a space and you say, this is the plan, and you skip this, right? So recognizing there's different kind of knowledges all out there, whether it's local or indigenous, even community neighbors that might not be your preferred audience. Maybe they're, they just moved in, they hate your lo'i restoration, dealing with that today, myself too, but you have to listen to them. they're part of your community, right? And then plan, this is when it's exchange. You can actually talk together now, discuss problems. We're helping the community lead if they have the capacity to lead. Action, this is one of my favorite olala no'eas again, huli kalima ilalo e ola kako. Action, right? We're all putting our hands down together. There's not one hand up, because this is when you want something, right? So you have to both put your hands down. You're implementing the plan together. It's collaborative. And then maintain. So you don't let go. You don't say bye. This isn't a bye emoji. It's maintain the relationship. So making sure you're transparent, reporting back, long-term maintenance, do constant check-ins. Always be transparent, especially with the type of language that you use. You don't go back and only use science jargon that the community is not going to understand. So really simple. That's the flow chart. That's actually one of my favorite parts of this report. Okay, so what now? Where does this document go? So I asked you guys this. I asked HCC this past one, and there seemed to be general support that this is helpful. The biggest question is, where does this live? Originally, we were hoping to hand this off to Lara Ka'akua, who's not there anymore. I don't know, does it go to Don Chang? Does it live in UH somehow? If you guys have any ideas, how does it keep getting updated? We've brought up the idea of HCC maybe every year or every other year. We have a type of workshop where we look at the document. What are we missing, guys? Is there anything big that we're missing? Off the top of my head and from talking to people, I think we're missing some conservation topics. If this is largely terrestrial, there's big movement in the coastal marine space as well, right? Especially in my current work, local fish ponds, aquaculture, CBSFAs, marine protected areas, fisheries. Do we have another document that is more Makai? Does anybody want to lead that? So these are some of the questions I have. So yeah, I would love to hear back from you folks if you have any questions or mana'o or thoughts. Again, this is a living document. It's okay if we got something wrong. We will fix it, and we keep adding to it. Yeah, and then that's my email right there. But mahalo, thank you.
Couple of things. When we're coming up on 3:50, which I know is the official end of class, and so we've got a couple minutes till then. Aimee, are you able to stay till 4 o'clock today to take a few extra questions? Okay. I can't go into Q&A without acknowledging, like, Aimee embodies why I do what I do. And I'm so proud of you. And it's just incredible to see where you've gone since your undergraduate degree in NREM and your mentorship with your master's program in botany with Dr. Tigton, and just so beautiful to see the continued impact you're having. And the way that extends out. So this report is now available. This comes out of a workshop. So if you don't like anything in there, it's like, it's just from 200 people at a workshop, and we try to capture it through your mentorship of Kalea last year and helping to transcribe everyone's chicken scratch and all that. So I want to leave the next 13 minutes for questions from our audience for Aimee. And we'll also take questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring that. Aimee, you can call on folks in person, and I'll take any questions that come in online. I'll pass them on to you.
Any questions or thoughts? Excitement? Not excited. I want to hear it all.
And sorry, one point of clarification. This was meant for managers, right? So there's an equivalent kind of document for that Rosie Allegado has prepared for researchers. This is really meant for managers to use in on-the-ground management and protocols and practices. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just wondering, because you mentioned that sometimes the community will take the initiative on projects to help the land and waters and everything. I was just wondering if it was possible for organizations or government agencies to see that initiative and maybe give them supplies for those initiatives, because it's kind of like a win-win, you know, like the funding won't be as high and like it's getting done faster.
Yeah, I wish it was so easy. Yeah, this is brought up all the time, even in some of the projects that I'm a part of. A lot of times the state or federal agency or the landowner, they just don't have capacity to steward that place, right? So it's more about preservation at a certain point. It's like, let's keep people out, or, you know, like we can't actually restore this place. Let's just try not to like do anything. So then it's like anything, it grows weeds. And then if a community comes in, sometimes, you know, there is this big push to do cold stewardship and put the power in communities' hands. But this is why we need a document like this, that we keep collecting what works or what doesn't work, because sometimes these bigger institutions think cold stewardship just means, okay, you guys do it now, and then we'll be out of your hairs. But there's no financial support, you know, there's, we still gotta go through this like ridiculous amount of paperwork that sometimes seems unnecessary, because that's just how we've done it for like 50 years, right? Yeah, I don't blame any one person, because I think the system is what hasn't been able to keep up with the fast pace of community management that's happening, right? Like people really are ready to just take it on. Like I feel like every ahupua'a has a restoration project at this point, which is super beautiful. But yeah, I would love supplies.
I know you're no longer in charge of that. If I can put you on the spot for just a moment, do you mind just mentioning some of the mechanisms that are in place? Because I've been hearing about in the like recreational trail world, right? There's literally MOUs with communities,
Yeah.
both Ohana, who are lineal descent of that space, so that they can manage that space and manage the trail. So there's examples already implemented. We just need more of it, right?
Yeah.
Of MOUs with communities. Do you want to just speak to some
Yeah,
of
in fact, we did a paper, so I was at the Illinois. We did a paper with the law school in a symposium on 25 years post-patch, where we listed a lot of the types of, this was about 3 years ago, we listed a lot of the types of agreements that the different divisions of DLNR had with communities that wanted to do co-stewardship, so cooperative agreement and MOU, whatever. I will say, besides the complicated bureaucracy, there's no capacity in a lot of cases. So it's like, you know, they got a long list of priorities and like this much money to do it. And like, we do not have enough money to do what we think government should be doing. The community part is fabulous. It's very, very exciting. But and there's some nonprofit support available, but even so, getting funding is its own kind of bureaucracy. So it's a little hard. So it is kind of like great if you want to do it, you know, just here's our, you know, agreement to make sure you're doing something that's consistent with our management responsibilities, and, you know, go ahead. And we have to check in every once in a while and make sure we're still on the same page. And, you know, not just giving up control to somebody to a group that might not, you know, that might harm the place. But it's not like, great, and here's a bunch of money to do it. I was actually in on the early discussions at Kahului, there, and that was fabulous, because historic preservation does not manage land. And for some reason, in years back, we got this parcel, and so what are they supposed to do with it? Because there's no other, you know, other forestry and wildlife does, state parks does, but historic preservation doesn't. So it's like, what do we do with it? And then, you know, interested community members came along and said, hey, we want to take care of it, and which is fabulous. You know, it's really great. So there are a lot of good models out there. There's a lot of really wonderful community initiative, which is, really been transformative in
Thank you so much.
Thank you, yeah.
Appreciate
It's
letting me put you on the spot. Sorry, Beth.
Yeah, and speaking to the capacity issue, that was one of the, what was it?
Yeah, I was gonna share, Dustin has a couple of questions in the chat, and I was gonna share those, but I don't know if you have a different response specifically tied to Suzanne's.
I mean, we need liaisons, like cultural liaisons, that's the first step, right? But also, once we get the cultural liaison, like, putting all of that on one person is very difficult too, to be like, you solve all the problems, talk to all the community members. But it's a great first step. So we've been seeing that happening in like DAR and all of these places. So that's hopefully one baby step. Big step.
So Dustin Paulus has a couple of questions in the chat. So when will UH be implementing these practices? And the second question is UH as PI should be part of this process, managing the land managers and agencies that benefit from these practices?
That's a great question. I don't know. Hopefully soon, because UH is a huge landowner and works with so much restoration projects across. I don't know what that looks like though. I don't know if it's a specific department or yeah. If anybody has any ideas.
There's also a comment in the chat. Miguel Castrens included a link to new, for those working on federally funded projects, some relatively new information that might be relevant to include in the report. And again, the report comes straight out of a workshop, but yeah, if there's useful things to add in, great to see additional things. I think that covers the questions in the chat. So I know we have more questions in the room as well. We can probably take one or two more in the room.
I'll try to remember what floating thought I had. I think I didn't mention how many people even did the workshop. I think it was 130 people. That's a full room. Yeah. Any other questions, guys?
I have one. You gave a lot of really, well, first of all, thank you so much for this talk. I've been looking forward to it for a while. And you gave a lot of really kind of golden bits of wisdom on finding your path. And at the very start, you talked about how NREM people kind of end up everywhere, which is really cool. In a class like this, a lot of us are sort of figuring out through the examples set by researchers and professionals, how can we embark on similar paths. You said something really interesting about melding together your two loves of hula and conservation, and not really, it kind of just happened. You went to opportunities as they opened up for you. You didn't cut any ties along the way, which is just in general a fantastic piece of advice. For those of us that are figuring out our paths, what advice would you give to them for melding loves together is ideal, but it's hard to do if you don't know what your loves are. So what advice would you give to those of us that are embarking on a journey similar to yours in identifying what those loves could be?
That's a great question. I wish I could stew on this longer, but for me too, like that was, hula was just my life. That's just what we do. But I always like to, in Halawakea, what we looked at a lot was some of the core values that we had. A lot of things come from our childhood. So trying to reflect back on what are the images that really reflect back at you. For me, it was hula and how I felt dancing hula and how I felt gathering plants and how can I keep doing that. And then I'm gonna pass one more wisdom. My brain's going all over the place, but I think it was Dr. Mehana Vaughn that told me back in my undergraduate days. She gave me the best advice that if there isn't a career path or specific, like some people are awesome at this. They already know, I want to work for DOFA or I want to become a faculty member. My goal was never to become a faculty at University of Hawaii ever. It was just doors that open, and then she said, if there's no perfect career that you can see or a job description, you make it yourself. So start to think of start crafting your own job description, like put those bullets of what are the kuleana responsibilities that you want to do. Somehow beautifully that just happened with me by, connecting with the specific people, and then, like I said, it's really about meeting people and mentors and seeing what they've done, and then trying to see, does that reflect back at me? You always think of it as a mirror. What are the things that I can see myself in this person? I could see myself in Melissa. I could see myself in Mehana. And then you start crafting your dream job. And if you speak it enough, I guess it comes to you because, yeah, my position is really like a beautiful mix of all the things that I've done. I was not a part of crafting that position description, but the bullets are in there, right? So yeah, that's
Awesome.
advice I have.
Thank you.
Yeah. Other questions, guys? Or thoughts? I like critiques. If you like.
All right, we're at 4 o'clock. Aimee, are you going to be around afterward for a few minutes?
Yeah, I can have
Okay.
stories if ever.
I'm incredibly excited. Next week, we have another former student of mine who's doing just incredible work, Shannon Rivera. And she's another one who I think no job description exactly fit what she wanted. And so she's literally just made it up as she goes along. So she wanted to work in wildlife enforcement. And so she has a part-time position as a contractor. She hasn't wanted it to be permanent because then she couldn't take additional contracts at Fish and Wildlife Service and enforcement. But she's just finished a contract doing research in South America on women and wildlife crime. And so I saw her paper come out. So will you come present that for seminar? So she's an amazing person to talk to just generally and all the amazing stuff she does. She had a dual major at UH in women's or gender studies and interdisciplinary, because at the time she didn't know about NREM, or she would have come to us first. But I had her my very first semester in NREM in 2015 as in my wildlife class. So super excited to welcome her next week. I hope you'll show up, same time, same place, to hear her present. We've got a fun lineup the rest of the semester, another talk the day before Thanksgiving, if you're still around. There also is a fantastic talk by Jeff Foster, who actually showed up today. He's online to hear your talk too. So I'm super excited to have you the next few weeks. For a seminar, we have food, stick around, chat with Aimee, chat with each other, read the report, skip down to the part of the stuff that you work on and see what you think, and provide any of your feedback.
I think my email is at the bottom of the document too, so.
All right,
Okay.
have a great day.
Thank you so much.